what are the 5 steps, the biggest 5 challenges that we have in communication when it comes to companies entrepreneurship. Today we have an expert, which is my Eskenasy, which is the founder of ChefreyOS, and he is the founder and architect of ChefreyOS, a human cognitive infrastructure platform designed to help organizations perceive context, coordinate decisions, and reduce the operational friction created by fragment system. He has years of working inside large organizations. Michael became fascinated by recurring problems, highly skilled people spending more time moving information between systems than making decisions. So, Mike, tell us, what are the 5 big challenges?
Welcome to Entrepreneurs Are Leaders podcast with Harry Sardinas. Interviews with world's most influential entrepreneurs that share tips about how to grow your business exponentially. Charismatic speaking, leadership, branding, marketing strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.
Challenges that we have in terms of communication between organizations?
So the first one of them is you have to look at the structure as a whole, and you have to realize that humans are the integration layer for everything. So when I go ahead and I call help desk and they say, "What's your name?" and I give them the information and they say, "Hold on, let me look up your account." And then as they go through and you realize they don't know what's going on, they have to ask you to tell your story again. And what happens is that is what happens when context doesn't get preserved and it gets pushed through. So the first thing is you've got to find a way to make sure that you're saving the context of decisions, because if people don't understand the spirit in which it's intended, it's never going to move past that. The second thing I would say is going to be understanding the cultural drift and the realities of what's going on with the teams that you're working for. Because if you're a CEO, your vice president isn't just someone who's managing an organization. They're playing politics with you for budget. They're proving the importance of their sector. They're pushing down to teams to execute. All those conversations that are going up and back aren't being understood as they go down the chain, and people don't understand specifically the stressors that are incentivizing decisions. And when that happens, it sounds like it's going against the grain and people start resisting. So again, we come back to the context in there, which is that people need to understand how roles are actually defined and what they do. The other part is that we need to stop using words like ownership and agility and things like that, because when you talk about what ownership is, really ownership is, we say it's of a product, but it's of a space. There's a whole ecosystem that needs to live around this particular thing that we need someone to be on the hook for to solve. And the ownership comes with a little bit more of a heavy hand when you can't preserve that context. So it's become a term where people are just saying, "Oh, you're the one whose throat's to choke." Like when I was working for different companies, I would always say, "I'm your point of contact," and they would always say, "You're the throat to choke if when things go wrong." So the connotation of that is becoming more real. The same thing with when we talk about being agile or cross-functional. It's we don't have the context to support the systems and the roles. So now, as a result of that, you have to be the integration layer, which means you have to learn partial accounting or you have to learn all these other things in addition to your product. So now you're pushing people against their ability to, if people are logical thinkers versus creative thinkers, you're mixing a lot of that. And the human is the one who's being suffered and stretched as a result of the fragmentation that exists within systems. So now that you've got those 4 things that exist, the 5th thing that needs to be considered is the family. You have no idea the family struggles that go on, because as an employee, you're taking the best part of someone's day. 9 to 5 is prime TV watching time. So if you're going to pull someone away from their family during the best times, and and I hope you're doing more than watching TV with your family, but if they pull you away from that time, it better be for something that's extremely important. And because all of that rest of that world, your family, your health, your finances, all of that needs to be juggled in your spare time. And there's a cost for that, but it's a cost to your family and it's a cost to everything else. So you have to weigh that as a CEO and determine how important are these things really, because that's how you're going to push people to burnout.
So, Mike, the we have seen in the version of AI a lot of companies fighting a lot of people and because of AI, and after they had to rehire them back again uh, because they realized that there is a human factor in
Hmm.
communication, and the whole philosophy should be how see AI like an exponential way of productivity for our employees, right? Than fire them and not get lost. So where the layer of a human communication and a skill within the company sit with the AI, and how can we avoid people actually right and get rid of people because of AI, to keep everybody and to embrace AI so they can produce more, they can expand more, they can amplify more. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
So you hit me right in the head with where I was hoping we would go at some point, because really what you're talking about is, if you think about what AI is a calculator. We are trying to supercharge it and make it into a deterministic functionality where all it's really doing is making smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller calculations to remove probability of risk. So that's what it's doing. So it's a calculator. And what happens is we've got a wedge economy. I'm Google, I'm going to build email. Well, you're Salesforce and you're going to build a CRM, and you're Zendesk and you're going to build, a support center. And those are all separate wedges. Problem comes in is those wedges are all owned by different investors who say, hey, Zendesk, you actually could build a Salesforce like function in there, but now you're cannibalizing from this business and taking it over there, which is going to hurt this investment. So when that becomes the factor of things, you now have walls that can't get through. So the context never leaves those walls, because as soon as the Zendesk, who's the source of truth? Is it Zendesk? Well, what happens when it goes to Salesforce? What happens when things change and it's not up to date? So now you've got these systems that don't work together. They're full holes. There's no context keeping them together. And then you stick AI on top, which is a calculator, and you're building faster, but it's more unstable because there's no constraints. It's just, this is what you want and this is what we think you want. So now we're making guesses, and that's why people think, Chat GPT just made shit up. It's like it didn't make stuff up. It was just unconstrained and had to fill in a gap and made a wrong decision. So that's the problem that we're seeing in AI, is the more that you try to remove the human component of that, the more you lose the context that's provided to do that, which is why I built the system that I built, which is called human cognitive infrastructure, because it's designed to capture the context in the moment through a conversation, understand every bit of aspect of it from an objective standpoint. What was said, how was it said, the tone, whether your point of view of how something was said is true or not is shaped by what's going on in your mind, what's distracting you, what you've got coming up in 5 minutes. All those things affect how you understand something. And now we all have fragmented point of views of the same story, which is why they say two people can see the same car accident and different things happen in their mind. So as a result of that, that context gets lost. So I preserve the context in the very beginning, capture it, and then make sure it stacks up all around. So whenever we need to pull back to a decision, we understand that context and how it ties to other things that happened in the organization. So everybody's working off the same source of truth.
Mike, tell us a little bit more about your company. What are you creating and what are you helping the organization with?
Say that one more time. Sorry, I broke up a little bit.
Tell us a little bit more about your company. what specific you specialize, and how can you help them, the companies out there with?
That's perfect. So, as I said, we do what I call human cognitive infrastructure. So the first thing that we do is we understand how a company wants to work, not what they're doing, right? So if you look at it and you look at a Salesforce and you look at a Zendesk, those are two incredibly expensive implementations, licenses, fees, upkeep, all of that are millions and millions of dollars a year, but they're just filing cabinets that store data. So what we do is instead of taking that information and having to put it in multiple spaces, we put it in one space on entry. So the notes become part of the living database that exists. Then every time something shifts, whether it's a text message or email or a phone call, that information is taken the same way and layered on top. So now you're building context about relationships that don't break. And because you have those contexts in one place, you can pass it off and it can be portable to other people on the team. So people don't lose context between handoffs. So the system is basically 10 million little pieces put together. So the fluidity allows us to design any tech stack we want for a fraction of the price because it's not a standard SaaS stack. It's a orchestration configuration on top of a database, an extremely, extremely complex orchestration. So because of that, our build time and cost time is so ridiculously low that we can undercut the cost of a current stack because all of the data is going in one place and we already have the coordination layer mapped. So we know where it needs to go and when it needs to be brought back into play. So people don't have to take their eye off the ball. They can be doing exactly what they want, and reality is being captured around them.
Yeah, Mike, because we have a challenge now with the rise of AI. I heard that some of the SaaS companies out there, they decrease in the value because now with AI, companies can tailor more solution to themselves. And that solution that you proposing, I think is good because it's cost effective to the
Well,
companies, and also it's tailored, which is, I think that most of the companies now, they are, we see a challenge now between SaaS
mhm,
model and companies more before you use SaaS as a software as a service, because it was very difficult for you to create that infrastructure, CRMs, and they're very expensive, but you have to pay for it because who's gonna develop their
yep,
own CRM? And even us in our company, we built our own CRM because the solutions that were out there, they were expensive and didn't meet our needs 100%. So we decided to build it in house. But it was something that it took resources. It was
yep.
expensive, right? But nowadays, with the rise of AI and with the rise of solution like you're talking about, now companies can tailor more software as a service solution just designed by them, by their special needs. That correct? They're more flexible.
It's a little more than that. So if you go one layer deeper, right? So one of the things when you talk about how complicated the CRMs are and how all of those are built, you have to look at the model for which they're built for. They're built for extraction. Because they're built for extraction of money from the customer. So they're telling you we are selling you a service and you are going to pay for it. So as a result of that, there's now an imbalance between trust. And when you look at all the companies out there, Meta, who openly says that we want your data so we can use it to manipulate you. We've got other companies who are saying we want AI to replace you. So the trust factor that exists in these companies is absolutely not. So that as a result of that, the companies themselves, the Bezos, the Elons, the everyone could technically build what I built, but the reason they can't is because they'll never have the trust. I am actually an LLC, not a C corp, because I can't sell any part of the company. Otherwise, I can't promise that your data will never get leaked. If your data is at risk or you think it's going to be used to manipulate you, you hold back. Even when you talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you still hold back because there's a judgment, there's a chance that's going to be come back at you, and you fear that. So the truth is lost somewhere in the middle. As a result of having complete anonymity and privacy with your own system, you can tell it the things that it needs to know to understand what you're doing. Now, because it understands you and it understands what's doing because it forms around you, it now understands your content and intent. And because you and I had a phone call and you said you wanted to go have a drink with me, it can now look at your calendar. It can look at my calendar, understand the priority of our relationship, where we would like to go, where's close to us. We'll be drinking, we'll need an Uber. All of that can now be automated by the system because it knows what you're trying to accomplish. And based on your history of doing things, this is how you do it. So now the frustration of the coordination of you and I getting together now disappears. So now all we have to do is finish our work, get in the car that shows up for us, meet at the restaurant. They've already pulled our favorite top shelf whiskey from the top because they knew we were coming for the reservation that was automatically set up for us. You know what I'm saying? And that's because of all those little pieces that gets created. Because I can create it that way and make it so fluid, it can be customized for every system, which or every company uniquely for their organization, which means they don't need to buy a Zendesk and a Salesforce to have all the features they need for that because they've already said what their policy is. It's written down somewhere. The system will access that, understand the problem, look at the history with the customer, and then give the human being the understanding of these are your pros and cons to solving this problem. Which one do you choose? Now you put the human involved, and now they're the integration layer for what action happens, not for the actual thinking and processing and crunching of facts and data and things that need to be put together. So we remove that friction so you can just focus forward and deal with with your customers, and everything happens around you.
Mike, and how you develop this technology? The other thing that we have, the challenge that we
Mhm.
see in our company, right? Now our employees are using AI, and I'm telling them, look, guys, you're using this for everything. This costs tokens. It's expensive. So
Yeah. Okay.
now they don't look. I'm telling them, look in Google. It's free. Every time that you
So,
use that thing, it costs tokens that I have to
well,
pay. And they have become
yeah.
addicted to AI now. Now they're using these things all the time. And so tell us a little bit
I've,
more about
yes, yes. So,
that. Yeah, go ahead.
so here's what I did. And I can get into the process. The process of like how it is more of what it looks like is a longer process. But what this is and what makes it different is you go AI. When you get a AI and you say AI, I want to make a salad. It goes, okay, you need vegetables, so that's tokens. Then it goes, I need to go to the store and go get tokens or go get vegetables. I need to come back, and cut it up and do all those things that are happening are AI needs to decide what is the next thing it needs to do with the available information. And that's where you start burning money like it's just ridiculous. So what we do is because we break it down at the center, all that data is subset in hundreds of different databases. And we look at this decision that needs to be made and we pull the specific data based on that. This is what they said they wanted for dinner. This is what they've got in the fridge. That means they need this from this. So we do that on every basis. But now because it's not AI trying to make all those decisions about what they need to do next, it's pieces of data coming in and then getting pushed into AI to make that decision. You now have scrubbed, standardized, normalized data with a selective prompt that is going to be the same every time. And then you capture the answers for that the same way. And now you've got context. So everything that goes through the system is now context, but it's an automation that moves it around, not an AI carrier. So we're using about 5% of the AI that everybody's doing because it's just all we're doing is grabbing all the fruit manually and dropping it in the blender, which is the AI to calculate it, putting constraints on it, and whatever comes out of that ridiculously constrained process is the decision that we believe is true. So so because of that, our AI costs aren't skyrocketing nearly what everybody else is, and our automation costs, because of the program and the way that automation is being sold right now, is it's the most expensive it will ever be right now based on our price structure. And the more so the more we scale, the more we use, and the more efficient our system actually gets, so we can actually pass that on directly to the customer. So we don't have to charge for throughput. So it's just like, you buy the car and just the gas.
Yeah. And Mike, the and how you came with that idea? Do you have a IT background, or how
Hmm.
you develop this software, or how because the biggest challenge, Mike, that we all want to use AI, but the thing has become expensive. The other day, my IT director was telling me, Harry, if this thing keep going like this, we're gonna be better off having our own LLM. So it's gonna
Yeah.
be more cost effective. he was he told me it's gonna take a lot of work, but you know, if it's keep going like this, we might need to build it because the thing's becoming expensive if all the team is using it. Correct?
Yeah. So I never really had that math skill for code. Like you have to know that this period goes here and this goes here. Like that is not my skill. Like I am more of an abstract thinker. So what I had to do is I had to be able to turn this idea that I have, which is basically make it perfectly stable. And it's what I call rifling, which is if you think about a short, like you got a little snub nose gun, it's going to shoot across the street, but it's going to be inaccurate. Versus a rifle that's got a super long gun or a super long rifle or a barrel that goes down, and you can shoot it harder and faster and more accurate because it spins as it goes through the barrel. We do the same thing. Is once we get an idea, we push it through, and like so I'll spend hours and hours just coming up with an idea. This needs to be true. This needs to work this way. And you come up with the idea. And then once that is rock solid where you need it to be, instead of that disappearing, you catalog every aspect of it. And that becomes your base for the next thing you do. So you have to be able to move that and move the context along. Otherwise, every time you sit down, the memories reset and you start it, which is why it's so difficult. So it was a brutal year sitting and going through, how do I get this out of my head? How do I turn it into something that can be a product? And then now I'm in the phase of how do I explain it? But what I love about it is because it's it's really like I describe it like a one person Iron Man suit. Like you put it on and it handles, it's like you're Jarvis. And I love it because it makes, what I'm doing easier. But what I'd rather do is put it in your hands and everybody else's hands and be like, hey, why don't we coordinate how your family operates? So you know where everyone is when your son gets a test back from school, instead of it going into an email that you've got to get later. If it's important and you need to know, the system moves that in front of you instead of popping a notification that you've got to now go. So it coordinates the messages based on priority of what needs to be seen to you so you can focus, which means you could set up your charities, you can do your son's baseball game, you can work the hours that you need to. If people aren't available all through 9 to 5, your calendars can sync and you can show up when you need to. So all of that became important, and it's better that instead of me having that for me, what if we gave that to everybody? Imagine if everybody had the ability to go full charged their passion with reduced efficiency, reduced complexity, reduced coordination. We'd be building Star Trek soon.
So, Mike, if someone is in love with this conversation, how people can find you, how this process work?
So there's a couple ways you can do it. Number one is the way that I prefer is they come to you, and then if they're really interested in it, you hold them up for some cash, and then we split it later. But if they don't want to go through you, they can find me at on X. My handle is at ITS Chefrey. That's at it's Chefrey, which is my dog. So so you can find me there. That's my public anchor right now. Um, for the reasons, there's some stuff I talked about, which is why. So I'm doing everything from there. My email is also Michael at ChefreyOS.com, and you've got the spelling of that on our chat.
Mike, and tell us a little bit more about what type of companies, what size of the companies they can use your system. And I love the affordability. This is a very good, because out there we all love it, the AI, but as business owner, we are a little bit concerned about, our team is getting more and more addicted to the thing, using it. I'm like, guys, everything you do with that thing takes tokens. Yeah. So we need more cost-effective solutions out there, because it's gonna help us to operate better, but it has to be like everything in business, cost-effective, correct?
Yeah, and this is, kind of like what you said, is the interesting thing about this is it's because of all the pieces, it's so liquid. I can build like there's certain things that are going to be true. Everybody needs a scheduling thing, so that's more something central. So everything can be built for any size company. I mean, the idea of this is that one person can be an individual company and handle everything else and just use their professional skill as the product, and and do things like that. But we can also manage complex companies. I've written all kinds of documentation for I can send you something that I wrote for Duckhorn about how it would be really cool to do all their wineries in a coordinated effort where where it's essentially managing itself except for the talent that can't be replaced. So so I can send you some of that and you can see. But really, anybody who wants to talk about it, it's a custom solution, because it's not about what you want to replace. It's about what do you want your company to do if it can do that. So you're building for the company you want, not the one that you're supporting right now.
Yeah, Mike, that's been very profound. Thank you so much for the broadcast. I really appreciate it. And for all of you following do you want to add something else?
Yeah. Is that you're more handsome than I.
So thank you so much, all of you, for following the podcast, and see you in our next episode of Entrepreneurs, at least how break entrepreneurs like Mike make businesses that make the world a better place. Bye for now.
Follow us for more on charismatic speaking, leadership, exponential business growth, branding, marketing, strategies designed to help you monetize your knowledge, find true happiness, and manifest your goals and dreams.